Hey everyone, and welcome to another weekly wisdom. I usually come online on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. to offer a little bit of diversity, equity, and inclusion wisdom, a tip, a tidbit, something of this sort. But I've been out the last couple of weeks because I did have COVID. So I was homesick and was not doing these weekly wisdoms. I'm grateful to be back to good health and back here with you. So, welcome to another weekly wisdom. And today we'll be talking about a topic that we were going to talk about a couple of weeks ago, but didn't get a chance to. So, today's topic is all about supporting your transgender employees at work. And maybe you've thought about this before. Maybe you know of some employees within your workplace who identify as trans, and you've been thinking about how best to support and acknowledge and really allow for them to be fully themselves within your workplace. So today we're going to go through those tips. One thing I do want to say before we jump right in is that you might have some employees within your workplace who identify as transgender, and you might not know it, right? So try to keep these tips in mind, even if you are unaware of any trans employees within your workplace, because you could be doing a whole lot to support and to ensure that everyone feels included within your workplace, including your transgender employees. And you can tell that this is something I was going to talk about a little while ago because I was going to talk about it as part of Transgender Visibility Day, which was at the end of March. But yet here we are. So let's jump in with the tips that I have for you. So the first tip that I'd like to share is to encourage you to create the habit and the norm of sharing your pronouns first. So whenever you get the chance to meet someone new within your workplace, or even generally when there are opportunities to introduce yourself, including your pronouns as part of that introduction is a way of signaling to everyone within the workplace that you care deeply about ensuring that everyone feels included, including those who might use pronouns that might be unexpected, or that there is no expectation around which pronouns people want to use. And therefore, you are going to move forward and let people know what pronouns you use so that others can feel comfortable doing the same. So this is something that maybe you've done before. Maybe you're like, oh, I've not really thought about that. If you're not used to introducing yourself with your pronouns, it's very likely that you might forget that that's something you can do, but that's one of your first tips. And it can go a long way once again. Even I right now have my pronouns in my name and I keep them there. And now so many social media outlets allow us to put our pronouns there. Consider adding your pronouns to your Zoom, to your Teams, to your WebEx, whatever it is that you use in your name, so that it indicates that you care deeply about ensuring that we use the right pronouns for people. Great. Let's move on to the next tip. Remember that there's no way to be trans or to transition. Unfortunately, because of what we've seen out in the media, many times our understanding of what it means to be trans or to transition is very limited. It's sometimes very much what we see again out, in the media and whatnot. And we don't realize or don't take a moment to sit back and recognize that everyone's experience with being trans is different and individual to them. So if you can keep in mind that actually everyone's experience looks different, everyone who is transgender may transition in a different way, that you allow that individual person to take the lead there. So that is something to keep in mind for sure. And then lastly, consider making another habit switch where maybe you can refrain from assuming gender or reinforcing the gender binary in your language. This is something that can, again, signal to people that you care deeply about ensuring everyone feels included. I know for me, for a long time, especially because of all the public speaking I do, I would use the phrase, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness, how reinforcing of the gender binary is that? It did take me some time to make sure that I was not using that phrase because, of course, there are people who don't identify as ladies or gentlemen in my audience. And it is incredibly important that as we interrogate our binary or language that may reinforce the gender binary, that we take some time to consider how we can use language to indicate how included we'd like everyone to feel. So that's both assuming gender and the gender binary. So that means not necessarily saying, the woman in the back or what have you. It means ensuring that you're thinking about how people might identify. They might not identify as a woman. And so keeping those kinds of language in best practices in mind can go a long way, once again, to making sure that your trans employees feel included and 100% supported. So that's what today's session was about. I'll go over these one more time just so that you have them in your mind, that you take them down and hopefully use them today and in the future. Share your pronouns first whenever you can, especially when you're introducing yourself to someone new. Remember, there is no one way to be trans or to transition, and refrain from assuming gender or reinforcing a gender binary in your language. I also want to say that these tips actually come from an article that was written by my colleagues within Seen at Work. We do at Seen at Work have a Pride at Work and LGBTQ ERG, Employee Resource Group, and they came together, a few of them came together to write an article that's called Supporting Transgender Employees at Work, What Leaders Need to Know. And these 3 tips are derived, they're pulled from this article, but listen, this article is meaty. There is so much that you can learn if you're looking to support your trans employees. And again, I'd love to suggest that you consider the fact that you may have trans employees and not be aware of it. So if you are looking for ways to be more supportive, this could be a really great resource. And on top of that, which I'll make sure that this is linked for you in the comment box underneath this video. But on top of that, I also wanted to emphasize that we have a guide that gives you even further suggestions around how you can create certain policies and efforts within your organization to make sure that you are being inclusive of those who may identify as transgender. Again, this is a little late given that there was a Trans Visibility Day a couple of weeks ago, but of course, my hope is that you are taking the time and energy necessary to pinpoint how you can be better at supporting your transgender employees at work every day and not just on that day. Great. Again, I mentioned we have this article. We also have a guide. I will post the link to both of those for you in the comments below. That was Weekly Wisdom. In less than 10 minutes, we give you the little tidbit about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Today's was all about supporting your trans employees, and we hope it was helpful. So I will see you next week on Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern. Bye, everybody.